Christmas turned into chaos when my sister threw a glass and accused me of betraying her. I didn't apologize, but I revealed her affair with her ex. My husband Ryan and I discovered I was pregnant in early October after 3 years of trying. We were thrilled but worried because my early miscarriage the year before had crushed us. My doctor stated everything looked okay but advised waiting until after 14 weeks to notify folks for safety. We chose Christmas since the whole family would be together and we'd be 16 weeks. I only informed my brother Ethan and cousin Megan because they knew about the loss and checked on me. They honored their commitment not to inform. My sister Charlotte, 34, has 5 kids and thinks she's the family pregnancy expert. She contacted the week before Christmas to ask about news. I declined, looking forward to meeting everyone. I seemed different recently, so she wondered what was up. I switched to her kids and she let it go, but I could sense she was skeptical. Charlotte cannot conceal knowledge. I told her first when I got into my master's program, because I was thrilled to tell my sister. She contacted our mom an hour later and told her before me. When Ryan proposed, I phoned her sobbing ecstatic tears, and she wrote about it online, tagging our family before I could say anything. She notified everyone at Sunday supper before I came about my promotion. She often claims she can't stop being excited for me. It's about her having knowledge to give. This time Ryan and I agreed not to tell her until everyone knew. I stood up after dinner on Christmas to share an announcement. Our May due date was announced to everyone. Everyone cheered and hugged except Charlotte, who gazed at me. Then she cried. Anger tears. Not happy. She inquired how long I'd known. I responded 8 weeks. She was defeated. She rose up and shouted I had to inform her first. She said I betrayed her by not telling her about all 5 pregnancies first. She stated sisters should share everything and I made her appear foolish. Charlotte turned on my mom and demanded if she knew when she attempted to soothe her. When my mom responded no, Charlotte inquired who knew. Charlotte discovered Megan and Ethan's silence and screamed at them for harboring secrets. She stated her family was against her and distrusted her. My dad advised her to relax and celebrate me. But she replied, how could she be happy when I deliberately excluded her from the most important news? I'd ruined our relationship and she'd never forgive me for making her the last to know. She then accused Ryan of pitting me against my sister. Ryan stated we wanted to make sure everything was okay. Charlotte thought it was foolish since she would have backed me whatever, and now she felt like I didn't consider her family. She replied, real family tells each other everything immediately. Ironic coming from someone who ruined every critical occasion in my life. Finally my brother Ethan observed, maybe if Charlotte could keep her mouth shut for once, people would tell her things. Charlotte flung her wine glass toward the wall, shattering it. My 4-year-old nephew cried. My mother wept. Mark tried to convince Charlotte to go but she refused. She wouldn't go until I apologized for insulting her. I didn't apologize for concealing my announcement. She called me a bad sister and left me. She packed her dishes and urged her kids to fetch their jackets. She was dramatically packing Tupperware into bags when I stepped up and stated, if we were sharing everything like real family, then everyone should know that Charlotte had been texting her ex-boyfriend Daniel for the past 8 months. Mark froze. Charlotte whitened. Silence filled the room. Nobody moved. In 2 seconds, Mark's expression went from perplexed to wounded. His lips opened to speak, but nothing came out. Charlotte's hands shook and her face was paper white. She choked when she tried to speak. Mark took his coat from his chair and started out. Charlotte eventually spoke and said it wasn't what I imagined. I didn't understand. Mark left already. We heard her cry his name in the driveway as she chased him. Her 5 children sat at the table, afraid and bewildered. The youngest, the 4-year-old who cried about the glass, wailed again. My mom ran over to console him, bringing him onto her lap and shushing him. The other 4 youngsters gazed at their plates. My dad was transfixed in his chair, looking if a rock had hit him. Megan stood up and picked up the larger shattered glass off the floor. Ethan glanced at me with wide eyes but said nothing. Ryan grabbed my hand under the table. Charlotte was shouting at Mark outside, pleading with him to wait to explain. Then a vehicle door slammed and an engine started. Charlotte's anguished cries became louder, but the automobile sped away. The street was quiet save for the kids wailing when it disappeared. Charlotte returned inside 25 minutes later. Her mascara streaked dark and her eyes were red and swollen. She stood in the doorway gasping like she'd raced. After surveying us, she stated Mark drove off and didn't answer her calls. She took out her phone and called again in front of everyone. It went directly to voicemail for everyone. She had to retype since her hands were trembling while texting. She turned and stared at me with hatred. She said I damaged her marriage and children over a silly pregnancy announcement. She claimed I was horrible and terrible and would never be forgiven. Even when my mom tried to quiet her, Charlotte started screaming at me. She stated I planned this whole affair and waited for the right time to embarrass her in front of everyone. Ryan stood up and told her she started it by assaulting me. Charlotte implored him to stop and stated he turned me against my family. Now all the youngsters were sobbing, even older ones. My 12-year-old nephew lay head down on the table with his arms over it. My dad finally talked. He spoke softly but firmly, telling Charlotte to take responsibility for her actions rather than blame me for exposing them. He stated she texted Daniel and lied to Mark about it. Charlotte turned on him and said nobody realized how terrible her life was. She cried louder and slumped into a dining room chair. Her body trembled as she covered her face. My mother grabbed her shoulder. Charlotte glanced up at her and stated she'd been unhappy for years but couldn't solve it. She stated having 5 kids was tiring and Mark worked all the time, making her feel invisible. Texting Daniel helped her feel like herself again before marriage and kids took over. She never planned to cheat and never physically did, but she understood it was wrong. Her eyes were fixed on my mother as she apologized repeatedly. My mom advised Charlotte to take the kids home and that we needed time to process. Charlotte nodded and grabbed her kids' jackets and shoes. Shaking, she stuffed her kitchenware into bags. She was ignored by her children. The 12-year-old walked his younger brother to the door by holding his hand. Charlotte never glanced at me as she left. She led her kids to her van and drove away. Megan used the broom and dustpan to sweep up the little glass shards after they departed. Ethan and I cleaned the table silently. My mom cried silently over the kitchen sink. Dad sat at the table looking blankly. Ryan carried my plates to the kitchen. The home was melancholy and heavy. Not Christmas as intended. After cleaning up, Ryan and I departed an hour later. First, the journey home was silent. About halfway through, I started bawling. I kept going. I was thinking about how I wanted this to be a nice memory of announcing our baby, but it turned out to be a disaster. Ryan took my hand while driving. He denied responsibility for Charlotte's choices. He reminded me that she'd assaulted me first, hurled a glass, and had a breakdown over my pregnancy-related silence. He argued I was entitled to protect myself after she hit me. Hard. Though I knew he was correct, I felt horrible. I kept picturing Mark's face as I described Daniel's confusion and eventual breakdown. I heard Charlotte's kids sobbing. Ryan switched off his automobile in our driveway. I cried on his shoulder while hugging him. He stated us and the baby will be okay, which was most important. Inside, I had a lengthy shower and sobbed more. Ryan poured tea and we sat on the couch. He showed a movie we didn't watch. The next morning, I checked my phone. Family members missed 20 calls. My parents, Ethan, Megan, and even distant relatives texted me. The longest text came from my mom inquiring how I knew Daniel. Calling her back immediately. She responded first ring. When Charlotte asked me to check a message while driving last month, I gave her the complete tale about seeing the text on her phone. I mentioned Daniel's name appeared with heart emoticons. When I opened it, there were dozens of months-old messages. I'd been carrying around the awareness that they were flirtatious and improper, unsure what to do. My mom moaned loudly. She stated she wished I'd informed her personally instead of publicly. I wish Charlotte hadn't yelled and smashed a glass at me for safeguarding my pregnancy announcement. My mother paused. She stated she realized I was protecting myself, but my manner did a lot of damage. Did she talk to Charlotte? She stated Charlotte phoned her hysterically around 3 a.m. She stated Mark hadn't answered Charlotte's calls and she didn't know where he went. Dad phoned me separately an hour later. He claimed he backed me and that Charlotte needed a wake-up about her actions. He stated she'd been entitled and mistreating others for years, but he concerned for Mark and the kids. He wanted to know more about Daniel than what I told him over dinner. I told him I noticed a few flirting texts, but didn't know the extent. I didn't know if they met or texted. My dad said Mark was probably trying to figure it out too. He hoped they could resolve it for the kids, but he wouldn't blame Mark if he couldn't. The mess was discussed for some time. He stated holidays should unite families, but this one had broken them apart. Before we hung up, he encouraged me to take care of myself and the baby and not allow stress ruin my pregnancy. Charlotte didn't reply for 4 days. I contacted her to check on her, but she didn't answer. Ethan phoned to say he drove by her house and saw her van, but no one answered. My mom continued phoning Charlotte scared and ill, but Charlotte only responded once to say she was all right and wanted space. On day 4, Mark answered my dad's texts. He wanted time to reflect while staying with his brother Michael. Mark declined my dad's invitation to chat. Michael contacted my dad that afternoon. Michael wanted to know what occurred at Christmas since Mark wouldn't say. My dad detailed everything. Michael heard about my pregnancy announcement, Charlotte's breakdown, the wine glass, and Daniel. Long after my dad finished, Michael was silent. He then said Mark had arrived at his home Thursday night, looking devastated, and had scarcely talked since. He stated Mark sat on his sofa viewing the TV without watching. Michael asked my dad how severe Daniel's situation was. No one knew for sure, but my dad believed Charlotte had admitted to messaging him for months. Michael warned that this might turn ugly and hoped everyone was ready. Our flat was my refuge for several days. Oliver returned to work on Monday, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my phone, which kept ringing. I ignored most. Ethan brought Chinese cuisine and entered with our extra key on Tuesday night. He placed the bags on the counter and took out plates without asking if I was hungry. I liked that he didn't overreact. He opened containers and served fried rice like any other Tuesday. While eating at the kitchen table, he informed me Charlotte had started writing odd Facebook status updates. He showed me his phone, which I read. Some stated blood doesn't necessarily imply loyalty. Another was about individuals stabbing you in the back when you least expect it. Each post had family inquiring what was happening and if she was okay. After scrolling, Ethan showed me one where our aunt asked whether it was Christmas. Charlotte replied with a sobbing emoji that certain family members had showed their real colors. Reading it made me nauseous. She made herself appear like the victim by throwing a glass and screaming at me. Ethan placed his phone aside and urged me not to let it reach me. Any rational person could see through Charlotte's charade, he claimed. But I knew it wasn't true since not everyone saw what happened. Megan texted me Wednesday afternoon. Her mother phoned that morning to discuss Christmas. Someone gave Megan's mom a twisted story. As she heard, I disclosed Charlotte's private business to shame her since I was upset she didn't know about my pregnancy first. She stated her mom inquired whether that was real. Megan told her the truth, but she wasn't sure her mom believed her. Megan was unsure who gave her mom that version, but it had to be someone from Charlotte's side because I texted back. I wanted to hurl my phone across the room in anger. Charlotte fabricated the whole story to make me appear like a monster who pursued her. She didn't tell anybody she flung a wine glass at the wall or had a breakdown at my pregnancy announcement. She didn't say she yelled at me and demanded an apology for safeguarding my news. My text to Megan said I couldn't believe Charlotte was doing this. Megan replied that half the extended family probably believed I was the terrible guy. Charlotte had always been skilled at playing victim and generating sympathy, she added. I understood that, yet it still frustrated me. Mom phoned Thursday morning. I nearly didn't answer, but I knew she'd keep calling until I did. She inquired about my health and the baby. I assured her nothing was wrong physically. She said she wanted a family gathering on Sunday after a moment of silence. She advised everyone to sit down and discuss what occurred like adults. She explicitly invited Charlotte and Mark to attend. My stomach sank. Family conflict was the last thing I wanted. I advised my mom against it since I didn't need the stress. She said she understood, but we couldn't let this fester and pull the family apart. I stated Charlotte's lies shattered things. My mom grumbled and stated that's why we needed to chat face to face. Ryan heard about it after I hung up. While filling the dishes, he looked at me. He suggested, maybe we should go so we could tell everyone our side of the story. I wasn't sure, but he warned Charlotte would control the narrative if we didn't show there. He was right. I texted my mom we'd be there. Too quick Sunday. I had a knotted tummy the whole trip to my folks' place with Ryan. We found Ethan on the couch when we entered. Megan arrived minutes later. Like every other family meeting, my dad made coffee and spread out cookies in the kitchen. Then Mark entered alone. He looked awful. He had red eyes and black circles like he hadn't slept in days. Mark showed us a text when my mom inquired where Charlotte was. It claimed she wouldn't be in my room and wouldn't talk to us. My dad shook his head and murmured. We sat in the living room and felt uneasy. No one knew how to start. Finally, Mark spoke. He confronted Charlotte about Daniel when they got home on Christmas night. Her confession was complete. Mark's voice broke as he claimed they'd texted daily for 9 months. He stated she confessed to having coffee with Daniel twice, in September and early November. My mother covered her mouth. Mark chatted. He stated Charlotte swore they never touched. Just talking, no kissing or touching. Mark didn't care because she'd been lying about her emotional affair for over a year. She said nothing physical happened, so Ethan asked Mark. No longer sure what to trust, Mark remarked. He searched her phone records and found the Daniel text from 10 or 11 months ago. He found emails Charlotte had erased but kept in her trash. Mark felt terrible reading those emails since Charlotte had been moaning about him to Daniel and that she missed their old relationship. Dad wondered what Mark would do. Mark contemplated separation. Because he felt furious and betrayed every time he saw Charlotte, he couldn't stay in the house. His brother Michael was hosting him, and he just went home after Charlotte took the kids to get additional clothes. Mark stared directly at me and inquired whether anybody else in the family knew about Daniel before Christmas. Everyone but me declined. After reading the text on her phone, I admitted I knew for a month. Mark nodded carefully, contemplating that. He didn't resent me. Despite the outcome, he thanked me for telling him. Mom spoke up. I may have handled it differently, she added. Should I have told Mark privately instead of publicly? My cheeks grew heated. Charlotte was yelling, throwing things, and demanding an apology, I informed her. I wasn't considering how to manage anything at that point. She spoiled my baby's announcement, so I defended myself. Dad came in to assist. He stated Charlotte's years of disrespecting boundaries and decisions concerning Daniel caused this predicament. I wasn't to fault for eventually confronting her, he added. My mom appeared ready to quarrel, but didn't. Ethan shifted the topic. He claimed it wasn't about the pregnancy announcement anymore. He advised Charlotte and Mark to resolve their marriage without involving us. Mark concurred. He stated he would convince Charlotte they needed marital therapy to save their relationship. He indicated he needed professional therapy since trust was damaged. After everyone gone, I was exhausted. I glanced out the window as Ryan drove us home. I received a Facebook message from a lapsed friend that evening. Simmons Nora. Our family acquaintance knew my parents for years. She wanted to contact out after hearing about Christmas. She had a similar experience with her sister 10 years earlier. Her sister had boundaries difficulties and shared Nora's intimate details with everyone. Nora takes years to learn to create and maintain limits. I could ask her for guidance. I messaged her back and we called for nearly an hour. She shared her successes, such as being clear about what information was appropriate to convey. She said that you must occasionally accept that some family members won't change and protect yourself. I felt less alone after talking to Nora. She understood in a way that others don't. 2 weeks passed. Charlotte didn't contact me then. I got updates from Mom and Ethan. Mark and Charlotte were being counseled. After Mark returned home, they slept in separate rooms. Charlotte blocked Daniel on everything and told him she was wrong and needed to focus on her marriage. I wasn't sure if Charlotte was speaking the truth. Charlotte texted me on Wednesday afternoon. It required in-person conversation alone. Reading that made my hands shake. Ryan requested to come after I showed him. I agreed immediately. I wasn't ready for Charlotte alone. Texting her back, I proposed meeting at a coffee shop near our flat. Yes, she agreed. We scheduled it for 10 o'clock Saturday morning. The night before Saturday, I hardly slept. Ryan and I arrived 15 minutes early for the coffee shop. We sat at a back corner table with my decaf coffee. Charlotte looked terrible when she arrived at 10 o'clock. She wore little makeup and an untidy ponytail. Like Mark, she had black bags under her eyes. She cried soon after sitting across from us. She said her life was falling apart. Mark hardly glanced at her, and her kids kept wondering why Daddy was sleeping in the guest room. She couldn't eat or sleep and felt insane. Then she looked at me and stated tossing the wine glass was improper. No excuse, she replied, and she was sorry. I said nothing. I waited for her next words. Charlotte cried and claimed she'd been envious of me for years. She stated I did everything easy. My work, schooling, and marriage to Ryan. Watching me excel at everything just made her feel stuck and miserable. Hearing this was unbelievable. Life had always seemed good to Charlotte. 5 kids, a great house, a hardworking spouse. I had a heartbreaking loss after 3 years of trying to become pregnant. I believed she had it all figured out while I struggled. She told me she felt confined. Mommying was all she did anymore. Though she adored her kids, she occasionally forgot who she was. She stated watching me travel for business, get out with friends, and have hobbies made her feel like she'd lose everything. She knew resenting me was terrible but couldn't help it. She dried her eyes with a tissue and stated texting Daniel reminded her of her youth and future. It was foolish and she knew it wasn't genuine, but it felt wonderful to have someone ask about her day and care about her thoughts. Ryan clasped my hand under the table. Charlotte glanced at us and apologized for tossing the glass. She apologized for spoiling my pregnancy announcement. She acknowledged her issue with seeking attention and being first. She felt significant when she shared news first. She stated her therapist was explaining why. She stated Mark demanded therapy or left. She claimed she had 4 alone sessions and couples counseling started next week. She tried to change but struggled. I pondered everything for a moment. I told her I forgave her for Christmas. I explained I understood her struggles, but she needed to respect my boundaries now. I answered that meant not disclosing my personal news without permission. I said it meant not focusing on her. Nodding, she replied, she will try. She requested me to undergo family therapy with her. Her therapist said it may repair our relationship. I suggested taking time to work on ourselves independently. She looked content with that reply. A couple more minutes of unimportant discussion followed. Ryan and I left. Before we left, Charlotte hugged me more naturally and less performatively. In the drive, Ryan inquired how I felt. I was cautiously optimistic, yet hurt. I wanted to believe Charlotte was changing, but I'd heard promises before. He suggested taking it day by day and seeing what occurred. It exhausted me, so I napped when we came home. A few days later, my dad called to say Mark had contacted him. Mark informed my dad he and Charlotte were seeing Aaron Simmons for marriage therapy. Aaron specializes in affairs and trust issues, my dad stated. Mark had returned home but was sleeping in the guest room. He informed my dad he had stay conditions. Charlotte must be honest with Daniel about everything. She needed individual therapy. She had to limit phone and social media use. Mark looked committed to making marriage work and to his expectations, according to my dad. I was delighted Mark didn't ignore it. Charlotte needs genuine penalties. I saw my doctor 4 days following that talk. Ryan always accompanied me. The ultrasound tech measured everything and reported the baby was growing well. My doctor then tested my blood pressure. Everything looked good, she remarked. She inquired about my stress and I said family drama was hard. She claimed my prior checkup revealed I was nervous, but this appointment showed the baby was okay. She urged me to take care of myself and not allow family issues impact my health. The baby needs me to be calm and healthy, she explained. My vow was to try. Charlotte texted me that weekend. An image of paper was provided to me. Her therapist gave her homework. She had to record every time she crossed someone's boundaries and consider apologizing. I magnified the photo. My pregnancy announcement was first, but there were many others. She informed my mom about Ethan's relationship before him. She wrote about Megan's new job before she disclosed it. She announced my cousin's engagement on family chat. She notified others about my dad's health scare despite his request. The list continued. 15 instances on the first page. It wasn't only about me when I saw it written down. Charlotte has done this to everyone for years. I texted her back that I appreciated her honesty. A heart emoji returned. A week later, my frightened mom called. She said Christmas in a few weeks. She asked if we could meet without drama. I stated I didn't know but would try if everyone did. She recommended a casual meal instead of a formal one. Maybe just snacks and games at home. No frills, little pressure. I thought that was better than recreating a holiday. She said she'd ask everyone whether they agreed. A few days later, she texted our family group chat the plan. Everyone said it was okay. The next Saturday, Ethan and Megan helped us set up the nursery. Ryan had painted the walls the weekend before. Now we had to assemble furniture and organize baby things. Megan helped me fold little clothing while Ethan assembled the cot. She pulled out a onesie that read, "Mommy's Little Miracle." She joked that my baby would learn from family dysfunction stories. I laughed because it was true. When Aunt Charlotte tossed a wine glass, this youngster would hear about Christmas. Ryan delivered pizza for lunch, which we ate on the floor among boxes. Focusing on the positive instead of the turmoil felt nice. We finished the crib and dresser that day. It was starting to resemble a nursery. I got mail notice on Tuesday. I checked the mailbox and discovered a Charlotte letter. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting. While returning upstairs, I opened it. It was 2 pages. She said her therapist helped her compose it, but the words were hers. She apologized for stealing my moments. She mentioned my graduation, engagement, and promotion from years ago. She realized she did it because she felt invisible. She stated being the messenger made her feel needed. She considered it selfish and immoral. She stated she wounded me repeatedly and never apologized. She claimed she didn't want me to forgive or trust her instantly. She stated she wanted me to know she knew her mistake and why. She declared she would change despite the difficulty. The letter was excuse-free. I was delighted or didn't mean to harm you. Straightforward accountability. Ryan saw it after I read it twice. He described it as actual advancement. Although I agreed, I was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. Christmas arrived unexpectedly fast. The week prior, my mom called to see if everyone still wanted a casual gathering. Yes, I asked if Charlotte would come. Charlotte confirmed her family's attendance and appeared thrilled, according to my mom. I was frightened, yet intrigued if the changes were permanent. Ryan reminded me we didn't have to remain if it was unpleasant. If Charlotte played her old self, we could go early. My dad texted me on Christmas Eve that he'd talked to Mark the night before. Mark said marital counseling was improving their communication for the first time in years. He stated Charlotte let him know everything on her phone. Daniel was blacklisted on all social media and chat applications. Before barring him, she emailed Daniel that she was foolish to talk to him and needed to restore her marriage. My dad claimed Mark appeared cautiously optimistic about a resolution. I replied back to ask if Charlotte would keep it up or if it was temporary. My dad claimed time would tell, but he'd never seen her accept responsibility. Ethan was setting up appetizers when we got at my parents' place at midday. Megan arrived with a homemade cheese board after us. Instead of tense like Christmas, the atmosphere was calm. My parents set up board and card games on the coffee table. This wasn't about a nice meal or flawless decor, she said. Charlotte, Mark, and the kids arrived about 1. I saw her enter with a casserole and wrapped gift. She waved at me across the room. Not the forceful embrace she typically gave. A basic wave. She put her stuff down and joined Ryan and me by the fireplace. She inquired about my health and pregnancy. I replied the infant was healthy and fine. She smiled and said she was thrilled for us. Instead of dominating the conversation, she left to help my mom in the kitchen. Ryan lifted his eyebrows as if he knew what I was thinking. It was different. Charlotte surprised me all afternoon. She let Ethan tell his humorous work anecdote instead of interrupting. When Megan discussed considering a puppy, Charlotte answered questions rather than providing advice. Charlotte didn't provide her 5 pregnancies advice when my dad inquired how I was handling my pregnancy symptoms. She was present but not overbearing. She participated without leading. Charlotte smiled at jokes and appeared calm throughout a few rounds of cards. Her kids played with toys while she didn't hover or try to be a great mom. Mark was more relaxed than in months. He grinned when Charlotte joked about her bad hand. Charlotte brought me a wrapped package from her luggage before supper. She wanted me to enjoy it for the baby. Opening it revealed a handmade baby blanket with stars and moons woven in. It was gorgeous and certainly time-consuming. I thanked her and she said she'd been working on it in her leisure time for weeks. She didn't declare it or grab attention. She softly delivered it to me and appeared thrilled when I replied it was great. My mom took me into the kitchen as everyone cleaned up after supper. She hugged me and said, "Thank you for giving Charlotte another chance." She saw actual improvements in her daughter and valued having both children get along again. I assured my mom I was careful, but Charlotte seemed different today. My mom prayed for this and saw Charlotte work on herself, giving her hope. I was hopeful, but I needed to see if Charlotte could sustain it. Mom agreed and felt that was reasonable. To finish the night, we played games and spoke in the living room. Charlotte stayed until 8 o'clock, then told her kids to go home for bed. She hugged everyone farewell, even myself. A typical sister hug. Not too lengthy or tight. She went with her family after telling me to text her if required. Ethan came over and sought my opinion after they left. Charlotte's behavior was so strange that I didn't sure what to believe. Maybe the Christmas catastrophe changed her, he remarked. Megan joined us and said she was amazed that Charlotte didn't promote herself all day. Ryan said it was progress, but caution was needed. I concurred. One nice day didn't erase years of boundary stomping, but it started. My phone rang the first week of January with an unfamiliar number. Something compelled me to answer. It was Charlotte. She said she was phoning from her therapist's office because Aaron wanted me to attend one of their sessions. He felt a specialist might help us discuss our relationship concerns. I felt sick thinking about sitting in therapy with Charlotte, but then I thought of my kid and how I wanted them to know their aunt and cousins. I asked Charlotte if she wanted this or if Aaron made her. She wanted to try because she missed me as her sister. I told her I needed to consider and consult Ryan. She replied that was okay, and to inform her. Ryan at work was my first call after hanging up. He indicated it was my decision, but he believed a neutral person would keep the conversation fruitful. Megan told me the same thing that night. Ethan indicated he'd back my decision. I texted Charlotte after 2 days of deliberation that I'd attend one session. After thanking me, she stated Aaron's office will call me to schedule. I discovered the appropriate number in a modest office building 4 days later. Charlotte was nervously waiting in the waiting area. I sat across from her after a feeble grin. Neither of us spoke while waiting. A 40-year-old man with spectacles emerged from a door. Aaron introduced himself and shook my hand. He walked us into his office and put us on opposing couches. Aaron thanked me for coming from a chair facing us. He stated today was about opening communication and making sure we both felt heard. He asked me to describe how Charlotte's actions throughout the years affected me. I inhaled and claimed it made me doubt her with my most vital matters. Every time I did well, Mom had to tell everyone first. It made my successes seem like hers. The pregnancy announcement was the final straw since I'd lost one kid and needed to safeguard this one. Erin nodded and asked Charlotte if she understood. Charlotte agreed despite her cries. She stated she was too focused on how being the messenger made her feel important to consider how her actions affected me. Erin urged her to elaborate. Charlotte often felt invisible throughout her life. Despite having 5 children and a spouse, she felt adrift. She felt important when she shared others' news. Now she recognized it was selfish and immoral. Hearing her say this made me emotional. Erin inquired how I felt hearing Charlotte's explanation. Though it helped me comprehend her actions, it didn't alleviate the anguish. Charlotte nodded and stated she wasn't having me forget everything. She wanted a chance to improve. Erin suggested starting there and asked if we were willing to re-establish trust. Both agreed. I practiced conversing without patterns with Erin in therapy and Charlotte over coffee for the following few weeks. She tried hard to listen instead of waiting to speak. Ryan noticed a change in her behavior around me. I felt the baby move and my tummy grew every day. I received a morning text from Charlotte wanting to visit that afternoon. I agreed, and she arrived at 2 with containers. She delivered frozen food she made all morning, such casseroles, soups, and spaghetti with cooking instructions. She wanted to help once the baby was born and thought ready-made dinners would help. She did it without having to, which astonished and touched me. I told her I wasn't sure what else I needed because this was new to me. She stated to contact her anytime and didn't expect to be in the delivery room. Her goal was to help however I was comfortable. I thanked her and she departed after 30 minutes. Ryan returned from work to find all the food frozen. He stated Charlotte worked hard and it showed. I felt strange cramps on the sofa watching TV 2 weeks later on a Tuesday night. Water ran down my legs when I stood up. My water broke in the living room. Ryan came hurrying from the bedroom when I called. He assisted me to the vehicle with the hospital bag we packed weeks before. As the contractions got harder on the drive, I breathed through them as in birthing class. Ryan contacted my parents from the car to say we were going to the hospital. My mom inquired if she should inform Charlotte. Even though we weren't close anymore, I wanted her to know she was my sister. Ryan left me down at the emergency door and walked to the park while a nurse wheeled me. They put me in a room for labor and delivery. I was 5 centimeters when the doctor checked me. I wanted an epidural since the contractions started becoming harder. After the anesthesiologist inserted the needle, the agony subsided after 20 minutes. Ryan waited with me, holding my hand. Parents arrived about 10 o'clock and sat with us. My mom told me I was doing well and my dad seemed anxious. Long hours of labor. I was fatigued and wanted it to end. After monitoring my progress, the doctor indicated I was ready to push at 8 the next morning. Ryan guided my pushes from beside me. I heard sobbing and the doctor stated it was a girl after what seemed like forever. Her placement on my chest was excellent. Small and pink with thick dark hair. Ryan and I cried because she was finally here. She was washed and weighed by nurses. 8 pounds 1 ounce. I glanced at her face as they returned her covered in a blanket. My parents met their grandchild first. My mom sobbed and hugged her as my dad snapped 100 photos. They left after an hour to recover. Next came Ethan and Megan with flowers and a cuddly giraffe. Megan held the infant and praised her. After being afraid, Ethan held her and grinned the whole time. About 30 minutes later, they departed. Charlotte and Mark arrived last with a large present bag. She approached my bed and requested to hold her niece. I agreed and gave her the baby. Charlotte's face melted staring down. She muttered that she was lovely as tears fell from her cheeks. She said I would be a great mom. She gave the baby back after 20 minutes and told us to rest. I liked how she handled leaving with Mark. She followed limits without being reminded. My first weeks back home were harder than imagined. The baby wailed constantly, so I barely slept. Ryan did his best, but he had to return to work after 3 weeks. Charlotte texted every couple days to check in. She volunteered to deliver groceries or keep the baby so I could snooze. She didn't just appear. She came over after I said sure. I texted her to hold the baby for an hour one afternoon since I was too weary to think. She arrived in 15 minutes. She rocked the baby downstairs while I slept upstairs. Felt much better this morning. She folded my clothing and did my dishes. Her response to my thanks was, "That's what sisters do." It felt strange. She helped because I asked, not for credit. The pediatrician reported the infant was healthy and gaining weight at 2 months. She stated I was a good first-time mom. Ryan and I were establishing a routine. We know her screams and feeding and sleeping times. Family support made it simpler. My mom visited weekly to relieve me. Sometimes Ethan brought dinner. Charlotte checked in often but never insisted on coming over if I was busy. The family was more courteous and supportive than usual. The infant was 12 weeks old when Charlotte and I had coffee. We sat outdoors at my neighborhood cafe. Therapy was helping her understand herself, she said. She realized she lost herself in becoming a wife and mother. She started Saturday morning community center art lessons. Her book group met twice a month. She was finding happiness beyond her family. She appeared lighter, less needy for approval. I admired her art. My dad informed Ryan one night that Mark said their marriage was better than in years. Mark stated he and Charlotte were finally honest. No longer were they only acting. The Daniel situation prompted them to face long-ignored issues. Mark was glad they could repair instead of letting everything fall apart. Charlotte was honest about her phone and schedule. She was trying to reassure Mark. It worked. Everyone came for supper on the baby's 4-month birthday. Simple pizza with salad. My parents, Ethan, Megan, and Charlotte's relatives came. Adults spoke while kids played in the backyard. Charlotte arranged the table and kept the youngsters calm. She congratulated Megan on her hairstyle and questioned Ethan about work. She wasn't self-centered. She seems genuinely interested in others. She played with the baby but gave her back when she fussed instead of trying to quiet her. Without conflict, everyone got along. Never before had our family reunions seemed so tranquil. After everyone departed, I rocked the baby in the nursery. She almost fell asleep in my arms. I remembered how awful Christmas was. The yelling, shattered glass, and damaged sentiments led to actual change. With support, Charlotte restored her marriage. We improved communication. All started respecting limits. The family was healthier than in years. I was glad my kid would see her aunt as a person who was growing and improving, not as someone who needed to be the focus of attention. I was glad we got here, even if it was filthy and terrible. I put the sleeping infant in the crib. I watched her breathe for a while before walking downstairs to Ryan.